that's essential. But I think there's one step before that that you have to consider, and I'd offer this up to you, that what you do in healthcare is extremely significant. And I think sometimes as we're searching for a purpose in a way, we forget that you ended up in an industry that is meaningful, important, and you chose something, regardless of how you feel sometimes or how someone else may make you feel, you are a significant part of not only this economy, but dental healthcare. And what you do, those decisions that you do on a very micro level have absolute important meaning to someone else's life. So never stray, and I think it's important before you get to purpose and why, is just remember, and you landed in something, you chose something that is extremely significant in nature. And you are important, your colleagues are important, dental laboratories are important. And looking at it in a bigger picture, there is just an abundance of research that just continuously floods information with the fact that there is an intimate connection between great dental health care and overall health care. In fact, a lot of the postgraduate schools, post-education schools, have a lot of literature and discipline around that fact. So never think for a moment that your purpose is distracted, or if that one case goes upside down, or if that one voice is challenging what they received, that it diminishes your significance, because that is permanent. And I believe that dental laboratory technology, what you know and what you do, will continue to be significant for a very, very long time. With that said, you know, I know you're faced with certain pressures, right? And you're faced with doing more for less, doing quicker, doing better, bringing on unique technologies, investing in solutions for doctors that have an endless group of needs. And it would be a great world if you could write a check and technology solves that. In fact, we see this continuously because that desire, that innate desire to solve your problems because technology can deliver, is a false sense of security. And I'll point out one area that I was involved with is chairside printing, placing printers in doctors' offices. They had a lot of struggles with certain things. You know, they'd like things quicker. They like the sheer thought of having empowerment, where they thought they'd have a piece of technology that would represent what a person delivered. It really encouraged them to write tens of thousands of dollars worth of checks. There's 20 plus, maybe 30,000 printers that are sitting chairside, and I could share with you that less than half of them are being used. The fact that you have that desire to solve something, there's not anything that could be solved by just writing a check. You have to work really hard, and if the doctor's offices, instead of writing that, sat down and invested, speaking to the laboratory, speaking to the technician about their struggles, about the things that they were challenged with, disappointed in, and did not write that check, they'd be so much better off. You have the answers that they're looking for, and any sort of frustration or shortcoming can be solved by mere communication and building out processes. So the fact that 30,000 people wrote checks like that, I would invite you to reach out to your doctors and engage with them proactively. Don't let them loop in their mind trying to solve it outside of you. Particularly your very best clients, you want to be actively engaged with, and not only speaking and searching for those good things and reinforcement, but find the things, and oftentimes, it's not an obvious thing. It's not maybe something the way they perceive you. They may perceive you as someone who's making medical devices or the laboratory. But in essence, you are a partner to that practice. And you could broaden out the scope of that conversation, because there may be something, it could be staffing more than likely. There's a very high percentage that are struggling with that. It could be payment, insurance thing. It may not feel directly related, but just lending that ear is going to have you back to the things that you could actually help and influence. But understanding their context is an important part of communication. It's just there. It's not the way you speak or deliver, it's actually the way you listen and understand that sets the stage for them to feel comfortable. So there's I don't think anyone would argue that everything's evolving. The dental laboratory industry is evolving, the entire world. And we see how fragile that reality is. Just 24 hours ago, there's press releases about tariffs, right? And now the whole world is, I wouldn't say upheaval, but they're in question, they're in doubt, there's lack of clarity. And there's no difference here. You've seen this in the most stable environment, that we just continue to evolve. The world continues to change and evolve, and the way we deliver this very same crown could be different over time. It has to stay within the context of the pressure that's around. I do want to point out, if writing a check for technology is not the answer, but still technology is a large part of the answer, what is it that's missing? And I would contend that a large part of making technology effective and making it impactful is about culture. It's about confronting the reality of what your lab is, the capabilities that you have, and understanding deeply the way your workflow processes. It becomes essential to make technology successful, to have, even if it's a 2-person lab or multi-100-person laboratory, just to align people together so that you're on a very straight path together, that investment becomes meaningful. So it all starts with you. It's inside your own mind and your own belief, and it really, to get back to the first point, if you don't feel like what you do is significant, you should really take a step back, because it is, there's no question it is, but you have to feel that from within yourself. So as you're making decisions on what to buy, it's not out of fear, as reference. I'm sure all doctors didn't buy it out of fear, but a lot did. And you don't want to make your first procurement about fear, about I don't have something, that I need something, or that this piece of equipment is going to solve everything for me. So it starts with what you want. It starts with what you understand and your needs, and it starts really with the fact that, hey, what I'm doing is meaningful, so I'm going to put that much meaning into the decisions that I make. And designing the roadmap of how you're going to implement technology, how you're going to take advantage of the industry, the opportunities that it affords us as it evolves, and the industry as a whole, first starts internally with the DNA, I'll call it your fingerprint of your laboratory. Very basic things that sometimes you have to sit down with your colleagues and what do we stand for, and evaluate not just the KPIs that you may have, but exactly how your culture makes decisions. How did we buy the last piece of technology? How did we choose the benches that we have? How did we choose the telecom that we use? And understand at a deep level your own DNA, what motivates you, behavior, skills. That's the beginning part of building a technology roadmap. It's not evaluating in the back of an LMT the capabilities of the printer or a mill or whatever you may be considering. It's really an internal assessment that should be ongoing in your own DNA. And then build in what it is, and I'll touch on all of these components, build in what it is that you really want. Because too often we're trying to solve a problem that maybe a doctor or a client brought up that you may have lost or challenged to capacity. But what is it that you really want to build your business into? And what are the ultimate goals? Where do you see yourself in 1 year, 3 years, 5 years? Where would you like to be? And that dream is not a dream. That's really an intended purpose. And that goes for an individual laboratory or a large organization. You need a North Star and a direction because all your decisions are inside the scope of that direction. Then along the way, you want to put items in, and I'll make some suggestions on how do you measure that you're moving in that very direction. And you want to be plugged into the environment, your local community of what your doctors are saying about patient flow, what they're saying about patients saying yes to cases, one they're saying no when they're apprehensive, what they're faced with insurance companies, other competitors, how they view DSOs, how they view their own future. But I'll first revisit and start with your own needs. With the group on your team, you really want to discuss what it is that you are. Why do clients stay with you? Why do clients value you? Is it your voice? Is it your knowledge? Is it your delivery? Is it the fact that you're in the local community? Is it those important aspects? That expression of how you create value is really important to understand for two reasons. One, you want to exploit that to others. You want to be able to share that because you can deliver on. Two, you don't want to make technology decisions or extraneous outside decisions that compromise that in any way. There is a lot of great laboratories, and I can remember there was a milling system many decades ago that came in. It was north of $200,000, and it came out, and there was such demand for this product. Very reputable company, really an exceptionally good product, but at $200,000 and with the brand at a height, it felt very attractive. I'm sure doctors were calling labs just like yours with the desire to have that, and it felt like, that's a big leap for anybody, doesn't matter what size you are, to do that. If you had 2 or 3 of your top accounts calling, you're going to consider it. Maybe you're outsourced, but you're actually going to consider finding the way, the means to make those investments. It was only 12 months later where that market dried up and the prices came down, and there was plenty of laboratories that had a sinkhole of money that is sitting there. And that, oftentimes you can withstand that, but what it does is it takes away your resources, it takes away your attention, and more vitally, it could take away why doctors liked you in the first place. And so it's important to know why, in my opinion, why people are using you. And I would encourage you to spend time with your best accounts, and not the problem, but why do you like us? Why do you use us? What about us? Because that becomes sacred territory. And nothing should enter your building, nothing should enter the decision that compromises that core. In a perfect world, you'd like to take that core and actually add to it. They like us for turnaround time. Now they like us for aesthetics. Now they like us for service. Now, and build out that portfolio of things that make you competitive, that make you different. And as determined as you can, don't allow any technology investment, any new person, anything influence or take that away. Because it could happen quickly and it can happen very subtly. So understanding what that is, and for larger organizations, organizational structure incredible meaning. It gives clarity to people. It gives definition to roles. It allows an organization to step forward in unison. And even in smaller organizations, you want to have an semblance of that. Even though everyone's chipping in, it's important to have a decision maker in each one of those aspects before embracing technology. And I'll touch on measuring systems and things to consider. Has anyone using in their labs KPIs or objectives and key results? Yeah, if it's not elusive if it's a one-person laboratory to a much larger situation. And I like marrying OKRs with SMART goals, because OKRs, objectives and key results, give you direction and visibility. It gives that, you know, a lot of people, these are just common things that people put on. If you chat GPT, what are the most common goals? There's not too many objectives that don't say growth, right? And there's not too many objectives that are not looking to have better service models. But what SMART goals do is, and what key results do, is gives it meaning, your individual meaning of what that means. And that you could define it in a way that's unique to you, and equally as importantly, allow you to measure that on a regular basis to know that your understanding of your business and the investments and the direction that you're going are on track. It allows you to retest those assumptions, and it also helps you give early warning signs of when you're off track, or maybe your direction is not something within your capabilities or is not an impactful direction. Rob, boy, I've known for a long time, and he's always been brilliant, and maybe one of the first lab. I think this is why they've been so superb at lab-to-lab service, because they knew so much about themselves. You made your environment visible, right? You continue to do that because it's not a destination journey. It's an ever-evolving journey. And I would encourage you, if you have time to hear his program, because he's a brilliant speaker and an understanding in it. And whichever system you adopt, I happen to feel comfortable with this, but there's a lot of different systems you want to be able to have. It could be a daily report of your sales. It could be something, did a key account, are they continuing to send? One of the things in my former position in laboratories, we had a 7-day report. We just analyzed 2 years worth of data and found out that if a doctor or high volume top clients didn't send a case in 7 days, there was, it was 60 some odd %, I don't remember the probability, that they were upset with us from something. And if we did not call them, because a lot of times that doesn't show up because we're busy doing stuff, if we did not contact them within 14 days, it was over 80% probability that they were going to be lower or trail. So we built something that telegraphed that and gave a push list out to a group of people that would call. We had an 80 some odd % higher probability of retaining and maintaining the revenue, because sometimes lost accounts put you in position 2 or 3 and you don't feel that they're gone, but a chunk of their revenue is gone and they're on the exit door. But we had an 80 some odd % higher likelihood of maintaining those sales if we called them when they still had one of our cases in the office. Because when you have a case in the office, you're listening with a different set of ears. You're listening to resolve. When there's no work in the office, someone's expressing a problem and they're not necessarily looking to solve it. So it's really important to have a systematic way, and you don't want to make it the end of the month. Doctors don't work on a monthly basis. They work on a 5-day, 7-day cycle. And really by the third week, there's a good shot. They've decided to leave you. And if one of the scenarios is going to be that you're lowering prices, you're compromising some of the integral part of your organization. So whichever way you'd like to measure, it's important to continuously to have something, one, and be in front of your very top high volume, high value clients, and allow that to evolve over time. I'll be more than happy to share with who's ever interested the way we've structured it for G&H Orthodontics and how we looked at it and some of the old lab structures that I've had, but I'd really encourage you to be able to look at that and make it as accessible as possible, where you're not digging in multiple places to get things like, any?
I totally agree.
Yeah.
Yeah, low friction is important.
Yeah, yeah. And when you're preparing, I would really encourage, no matter what you've seen on the show, there's some really good companies with some really dynamic solutions. But I'd encourage you to understand your own DNA, your own social circumstances, the culture that exists, how you adopted the last investment you made. It doesn't have to be a printer or a mill or but how did you incorporate a new telephone system? How do you incorporate a new software? What are the things that went right? What are the things that were challenged? Who got upset about it? Who was a part of it? And I'll share with you, not from a lab perspective, from a practice perspective. When working with, whether it's a mill or any type of manufacturing technology or even a scanner going into a practice, there's some really good research that shows if the doctor incorporated the entire staff into the decision making, that their success rate of implementation went up over 50%. If that scanner, that device showed up and the team is seeing it for the first time, they were 50% less likely to actually utilize it. But that is just human behavior. That's not unique to a dental practice. And manufacturing, although I don't have statistics, I'm going to share that it's probably, my opinion, much higher probability of failure if people are not on board with it and that are not incorporated in that decision-making process. That doesn't mean that you have to go out and have a vote. Maybe it does sometimes, but it does mean informing and having people engaged, letting them be aware is going to be extremely helpful for any new product, any new technology that you may consider. And the also thing I would encourage you right now is to look at your own environment. What's around you? How is the building set up? How are the benches set up? How is, and really get a good understanding. Is it set up in an optimal way? And I know I don't have that type of skill set to be able to see it. Rely on other people that may have done it. Stephan, your organization is known that, I remember just breaking down walls, to make things happen without deliberation to make the environment fit. You don't have to fit into your environment. Help the environment fit into what you need and what you're doing. It's an important but very a skill set that labs don't pay a lot of attention to, but it's absolutely important when speaking about the success. And also I would encourage you that there is no technology out there that I've been involved with that you could just buy and not need certain degree of competency in that. And I would really, before that arrives, before you make that investment, do a lot of homework and attend classes, reach out to people that have it, take classes from that company that you're considering purchasing it from. Don't wait till you buy it to do that. really build, and that goes back to the initial part of understanding the DNA, is make note of, okay, we're really good at this. I had someone who bought in the mill, they got up to speed really quickly. Maybe let's invest in that person to give them, you know, a higher degree of competency. And this is, sometimes self-reflection is difficult because you want all these things, you want to go somewhere, but reflecting and confronting the reality of what you have is really an important first step. And understanding that, and really, like you're doing here, being at the show, invest in that. It is absolutely worth it, and no one should get $1 of your money until you invest first in yourself. And one of the key things is going to be culture. You guys spoke about incorporating aligners and different new technologies into your orthodontic laboratory, right? And understanding the culture, it sounds really encouraging. I don't know your lab, but it sounds really encouraging. That sounded excited that you incorporated a couple of new things over the last couple of years. That enthusiasm is step one. You know, obviously you got people on board and did a good job with that. And really step two is, what are we? You know, how do we make decisions? How do we engage with things? Are we so busy that we can engage with technology? Or do we have the capacity and the curiosity to learn and embrace it? And it really has, in an intimate setting, having trust in one another, having faith that it could work is an important part. If that's compromised in any way, but that goes for large organizations where you may not know everybody. There is an air that is trustworthy and a culture that disseminates. I know Stephanie stepped up, but Chuck, I'd say that no one is better in the whole industry at mass cultural cultivation. And that is such a powerful, I cannot express enough how powerful that is. Because I've been part of both. When something in the culture, there's mistrust and things are unsettled, it doesn't matter if an account came in and knocked on your door and said, we're going to dump a bunch of business, and the Brinks truck filled up, you know, pulled up to your door, you won't be able to make it work. If you have that, you could really muscle through. So I encourage you, if it's compromised in any way, look to repair that. If you feel it's slightly, you know, take a time out in your organization and recalibrate. I've had the blessing of working with my brother for forever. I mean, literally, I think he was born into the world because my parents were concerned. Abel could share this with you. I mean, he has a lot more talent than I did, and came 13 months after, and we've never been separated. We started businesses together, from selling golf balls to building a landscaping to having a dental company together. But that does not mean, I mean, the core of what we were always were existent, but that doesn't mean we saw the world in the same way, and thank goodness. But whenever we felt that tension, when things were not just right, where we couldn't express ourselves, we went golfing or did something that brought us back together and reminded us that, hey, we may have a different opinion, we may really deeply want something that's different, but the core can't be compromised. And having a different opinion does not mean that you're different. It just means you have a different way of looking at it. Leverage that diversity, but don't let it separate you. And take a time out and pause when you feel that, because that is a key part of being able to buy any type of technology and being successful. Anyone can buy it, but being successful with it is exactly the main point. And I'm going to take just a minute on this, because it's not something that our industry spends a lot of time on, but I am going to encourage you, because the world is so influenced by things that happen outside of dentistry, outside of our control. Just this tariff thing, maybe it doesn't directly impact labs. Some labs it very much impacts. But understanding what's going on in the consumer world, understanding what the impacts are is a really important consideration, because you want a backdrop, and you'll never have a perfect economy, and even people that get paid hundreds of millions and billions of dollars don't know what next month, next quarter is going to be. It may feel like they do, but they don't have any more of a crystal ball than any of us have. But it is important to be aware of that, because it'll also help you to understand what your doctors are facing, because they're really faced directly with consumer behavior. And the tariff thing that happened, it's been going on, but really highlighted, is going to have ripple effects that are important to all of us. And it's important to know that those things exist. I won't go into this other than I'd like to just point out. First of all, I don't have a graph here, but in over 100-year period, there's never been 4 years where dental has been down. So keep that in mind as you're going through hard times. Over 100-year period, dental certainly has dropped, recessions, world wars, COVID, but it's always been up and to the right over time. And I'll like to make 2 points on that. One, don't lose faith in the industry that you're in. It'll involve in the way you make money is going to change, and it will change. And two, the resiliency inside of dental health care is there, but also know that the Achilles heel of not making it through those brief cycles is actually anchoring yourself with hard costs that are not flexible. Not allowing your organization to be flexible when things go upside down through no fault of your own is an important attribute to get to the other side, to be able to be successful, because the best days for our industry, for a well-positioned lab, are ahead. And you don't want to miss that because you're anchored with a bad technology decision that didn't get the ROI that you expected, and simultaneously something extraordinary happened. And keep in mind too, to emphasize, this is overall healthcare, but as the world costs, as household expenditures go down and consumers are spending less, healthcare expenditures are actually going up. Now, it doesn't have the quantity part of the graph, that's dollars, so you have to tune for inflation on this, so it's not as dramatic as what you may see, but the access, the desire for healthcare is continuously, how we do it, how much we spend of it, if we get just short-term treatments that never hit a dental lab, that's going to take time, but people actually spending a higher percentage of their money on their well-being is absolutely up to the right. And we'll earn our spot over time, maybe not temporary. And one last thing I'd like to point out, again, I don't have a crystal ball, I don't know. You could read a lot of economic news. There's no one that I would say, oh, they said this, that's definitively what's going to happen. Because the best of them are not right half of the time, right? But what we could be faced with, and why I want to emphasize what you buy for your operation is so vital for so many reasons that we spoke about, but this in particular, we could be faced with an environment where costs are higher and what we get per unit is compromised or lower. And the only resolution to that is not a better marketing plan. It's understanding, one, yourself, and two, building in operational excellence, building in a very fluid operation where those raises, that extra margin, that extra profit comes from within. Because the world's not going to hand extra profit out. But inside your raise is inside the operation. Your ability to invest in new technology is actually within your house. And operating in that world, this could turn into a very, very powerful point of differential. Because if someone's looking at a price list and a doctor calls and they lower their price without understanding your operation, that is not sustainable. And it has not been dramatically punishing over the last 20 years because we've seen costs go down. And you've actually, doing that, you get a little bit of a free ride. Where there's deflation, you were able to move work offshore, you were able to get lower prices on consumable. That world that existed is not going to be with us for the foreseeable future. So in order to give someone some of your money, you have to earn it from your operation inside. In order to generate more raises, more income, it's going to come from the inside, in my opinion. You know, again, no one knows what the future is, but it's, and I didn't go to any, these are all macro things. The only thing I want to point out here, and there's a lot of dynamics about the work that's offshore that, you know, can possibly come back, and I'll touch on that. But there's not too many scenarios that doesn't point dental expenditures going higher. Right. And I just picked up a number of different research. I cannot find one where dental expenditures over a 5+ year period are lower. That worries me in some aspect because, you know, the good shot, but you know, reflect back on that 100 years where we've never had a period where dental expenditures are lower. It does not mean that the fish jump in the boat and we make money regardless. What it does mean, the opportunity to earn money is there if we're operating and making the right investment decisions. I will point out one item. According to the FDA, and these are first half of 2023 numbers, I don't have 2024 numbers, there was 33% of the dental technology expenditures from lab to doctor that were made outside the United States. Now, if the tariffs, I'm not saying that's good or bad. What I'm sharing with you, if in fact everything shut down and we have a small sample size of this during COVID, would the U.S. laboratory industry be able to make those crowns, bridges, dentures, partials? Right? We had the opportunity, U.S. manufacturing had the opportunity during COVID when global supply chains shut down, but not only did that go back to other means of manufacturing, but we lost that opportunity. It went back even in more dramatic style. It actually increased from 28% to 33%. And I'm not saying it's a failure of a dental lab, but it is, we were not prepared for that. What I would say is I wouldn't encourage overinvestment, but I would encourage the discipline to make good investments here and now, because you may have the blessing of these units having to be back here and made. It'll never be through your hands alone. It'll have to be empowered. And please don't take away from me, I'm not encouraging you to invest in technology and means to build up your I'm just suggesting a way to approach it. I'm a big fan of investing in it, but I'm also a big fan of discipline, not because I knew better, because I've made plenty of decisions that didn't pan out. And we touched on this, some of the cross-industry ripple effect. And again, as part of the dialogue with the doctors, find out how they're influenced. And if it's a top doctor, be acutely aware if they're relying on insurance, if they're reliant on, and you want to make a note of that in your CRM, of how is it that their practice is positioned. So when you hear about these macro conditions, you'll be able to identify, well, Dr. Smith is one of our top clients and Delta just lowered their, you'll be on warning that, hey, maybe we should call this doctor and see how we can help them. And some of the other influences that I won't go into. So the economic pressures, it just makes it, whether it's interest rates, inflation, not getting certain supplies that you relied on, digital manufacturing feels like the answer. And in many ways it is, if not always that it is. But that's void of a solution if it's not built into the right decision, into the context of your laboratory. So, these influences were a distant thing. We only went, but today we are all living the fact tariffs are influencing consumer confidence, the stock market, whatever it may be. People don't have less money that very next day, but they have a feeling like they have less money, and they have a feeling like they may not have as much in the future, and they generate a feeling of stalling. Lack of clarity is one of the, in our culture, I'm not sure how it operates globally, but in our culture, we are so great at and resilient at dealing with anything. You could do some pretty dramatic things. When we confront it, we get through it. And we find solution. When you don't give us clarity, it is very, very difficult for us to get on firm ground. And that very thing that you see on a macro level is alive inside of your laboratory. Clarity is so important to being able to tackle. So yes, I'm going to encourage you to adapt quickly, but with a purpose and with a framework and with a methodology, first from inside out. And it is in your mindset, how you have a growth mindset, and your organization has a growth mindset. You're going to approach and tackle things not from fear, but how is this going to make us better, versus having a fearful, I lost this account, this lab down the block bought this machine. Those decisions tend to be really harmful. I would encourage you to look and revisit all your organizations and make sure you have a shared purpose. I mean, it sounds, you may have a mission statement on the wall, you may have, but always checking in on what that is. Honestly, as a dad of 3 daughters, I have to find out that we have a shared reality on an ongoing basis. You know, and I'm always, you learn often the painful hard ways that when you don't see the world, you're listening to something and you're hearing it in a different way, is really not because you disagree, is that you don't have a shared baseline. I mean, the first part of any kind of discussion is just, we're going to look at the sky and agree it's blue. Find something in the organization to agree upon, because it's impossible to make measurements or anything forward thinking if you don't start from the right baseline. And that goes for any relationship, and it certainly goes for management teams and organizations. And then, you know, being able to recognize, you have that rock star that set up a mill, you have that rock star that engaged with an outside, where there's a design center, or implemented something. Be really quick to recognize that. Be really quick to leverage that and encourage that kind of learning. Not only is it important to that person, but it'll be contagious throughout the organization. And a growth mindset. Growth is such an important, it's not just an exciting thing to talk about. It's not just something, but growth gives you privileges. Growth gives you energy. Growth gives you excitement. It gives you capital to invest more, but equally as importantly, there's something visceral deep when you're part of an organization that grows, right? And you feel energetic. It gives an energy boost to the culture. And it's an important, and growth could be defined in a lot of different ways. It doesn't have to mean that our revenue numbers higher. It could be our margins are expanded. It could be we're servicing more clients. It's how you define it that really counts. And then building and making sure the communication, that there's a high degree of trust and safety. Any good communication starts that you're in a safe place to express. And companies are no different. Cross department, I love exercise across departments is just getting departments that there's I wouldn't call them friction, but transfers where you're building something, you're going to another department. It's not that you'd ever do it together, but sitting down is important, but doing something like co-creating a PowerPoint, I mean, it sounds simple and silly, but when you have to put together and express your feelings on a single slide or 2 slides on what those 2 departments are actually doing, it requires you to get connected, and it teases out where you're different and where you see the world different, where you see reality in a different way, where you're not holding someone accountable or you don't feel like you're in sync. I have not, there's no research in that, it's just been experience. It may not work for certain laboratories. It's always been something pretty effective to kind of unveil when there's what I would call hot spots. And I just want to propose, this in closing. This is something that over the years I've put together a framework and model of how to view technology investment, how to view the world. The first part of it is instinct, and how I broke it down is the IN is immediate needs. It's important to talk about the future and making technology investments, but you have to take care of your immediate needs, the things that you've already earned that are in front of you. You can't forego that. And then STI is the structural influences. Those are influences that are outside your laboratories and things that could have, doctors seeing less patients, doctors seeing more patients, doctors moving from a single tooth practice to all on 4 practice. Things that are in your environment or that you should be aware of. And NCT, and this is what I'd encourage all of you, because technology adoption, you need to normalize continuous transformation. It shouldn't be a start and stop journey. Normalize it into your DNA that we are going to invest in other things. You may not do that because it may not filter through your framework decision, but you want to build the culture where that change is normalized. And then adding to the model, and I would also try to rate yourself at how good your organization is and how good you are personally in technology adoption. I had the good blessing, someone that I had a small company that had the opportunity to hire some people. One person I hired out of high school, and she just persevered raising kids, and she put herself through college, put herself through master's, and got a PhD in technology adoption, which I didn't know that existed, but I have not had one job where she wasn't by my side. Nothing. I don't think she enjoyed it as much as I did, but I needed her. And understanding the human part of technology adoption, there's an entire discipline around that. And it is a human experience. It's that piece of equipment, I don't care how good it is, it has a human reaction. And understanding what your scorecard, getting everyone on pace is going to be an important part of any new product, any new technology, any new system that you place. And it is meaningful. and then cultivate an ecosystem of shared understanding and build that environment inside, because I do think the future of dental labs, successful dental labs, not only enabling technology, but how do you create this environment where a doctor feels so intimately connected to you that you're not only, you know, a good friend and the quick turnaround and in the local community, but you are an integral part of the way they do business and the way they see the future, and they don't make decisions outside of, hey, what is my lab partner? I need them involved in blueprinting my future. Boy, we're right at the time, so thank you so much sincerely for taking the time out today. I know you got a lot of choices out there, and I applaud you all for traveling from far distances to join. I think these guys did an outstanding job. The Texas Dental Society, Lab Society, Felix, the team, Kate, they put a lot of energy, right, a lot of self-sacrifice. These guys are running labs and have jobs. That's pretty extraordinary to do that on behalf of everyone to make us all a little better. So that's a big, please thank them when you see them. And if nothing else, be deliberate on your decisions, build the right framework, and don't ever forget that you are a significant part. Dental technology is one of the most significant parts of all of healthcare. And it'll only be illuminated each and every day as more evidence, as the truth wills itself out. So no matter what that conversation is, don't lose that. So thank you, everybody. Is there anything that credits or you guys